Hello friends, today we'll be discussing and reviewing Seasons of Albadone. Seasons of Albadone was written by Alain Marché and Christopher Warman. It's a self-published book and was published in 2020. Before I started reading Seasons of Albadone, I was in a weird place with my fantasy journey. I had been on a little bit of a burnout. I felt like I was reading the same story over and over again, a lot of the same tropes, just recycled over and over again, and there were a lot of standouts, but there was also some that I just became a little burnt out on fantasy. Now, when I started reading Seasons of Albadone, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Looking at the cover, it almost looks like a young adult novel. I wasn't really sure what kind of story to expect, but I dove into it, and I'm so glad I did. One of the big things I loved about this book is there are no info dumps. The story evolves on its own. There's no big, huge sections of information that just gets dropped on you. The prologue is about 2 pages long. The stories had a very emotional punch that I was not expecting them to have, and they're separated by seasons. So each season you follow a different set of characters, and you get some backstory, and all the different seasons and all the characters, they all converge and they all affect the story of the wider world together. So they all play a part in the overarching story, and all 4 sets of characters are all connected. They're all connected to the world, and together they're all very significant. Now, when you start reading this book, it almost feels like you're reading stories of NPCs. We've all played the video games that we see NPCs kind of hanging out and talking amongst themselves, going about their business. And we're usually too busy on the quest that we're doing or the whatever it is that we're up to. We don't really pay attention to them. Well, this book is almost like you're reading stories of these NPCs that you normally don't pay attention to. And that's another reason why I love this book, is because it's not your usual trope fest with the Chosen One or the warrior or, the typical stuff that we've become accustomed to reading in fantasy. These stories are just what feel like normal people that you're looking in on their lives, and you're seeing what they're up to, what their daily lives are, and their failures, their successes, their history, their pain. You get a little touch of everything. And what's great is that you get different ranges of emotions. You get addiction, you get humor, you get sadness, you get characters' histories, overcoming obstacles or failures. And while it is a very short book, there's a ton of emotion and a ton of story in these 200 pages. One of the big themes in this book that I took away, especially after the conversation I had with the authors, is that everything has a price. So that gives you an idea of what you're in for going into this book. There are some, like I said, some very, very emotional stories. There's some gut punches you take that you wouldn't expect to have in a story like this. There's some just hilarious burst out laughing moments. There's some really painful moments, some very painful memories. There's some subject matter that's dealt with very delicately and very respectfully in this book that you don't find in very many fantasy books. I am going to rate Seasons of Albadone 5 white caps out of 5. This book is a gem. More people should be reading it. More people should be enjoying it. It is a can't-miss fantasy book. This book took me out of a reading slump, and more specifically a fantasy reading slump that I was in. It's a perfect way to get into fantasy if you haven't already. It's a perfect way to mix things up and read some really powerful, emotional, humorous, sad, great fantasy stories. I can't give this enough praise. Give it a read. Give it a try. You won't be sorry. Thanks for watching my review of Seasons of Albadone. Have you read Seasons of Albadone? If you have, let me know down below what you would rate it. I hope this review was helpful, and I will talk to you soon.